On this episode of Speak Candidly, we talk about neurodivergence.
Welcome back to Speak Candidly. Here's Brandy and Adam.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Speak Candidly. I am Brandy, and this is Adam, and this is where we speak candidly about everything and anything we want to. And today, we're talking about neurotypical stuff and neurodivergent stuff. So, about a year ago, I got diagnosed with ADHD and autism, which I had been questioning for some time and bit the bullet and got the diagnosis. And I thought either way, the yes or no would have been like a weight lifted. And instead, I feel like it has put me in this tailspin where I don't know which direction is up, and I am finding it even harder to function as a human. And it's been a huge struggle. So we thought that it would be a great topic, especially to address for people who might be going through the same sort of thing.
Yeah, so for a little background, I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 19 years old. And so I'm kind of on the same journey, except I'm very much ahead of you, which I find, kind of interesting because I always think that I was diagnosed later than what I should have been. I look back and say, what if I had been diagnosed as a kid and I had gotten, what I needed back then? But looking where I was and what I've been able to kind of do with everything since then, compared to you who literally just got diagnosed last year, it's been a very different journey for you than it has for me.
You're always talking about kind of tips and tricks that you've kind of discovered for yourself along the way and how you've made that work for you. And I feel like whatever was working, for some reason, all of a sudden is not working. And now I have to figure out how to function. And I feel stuck.
Well, the funny thing is, you would think that when you finally get that diagnosis, right, you think there's something wrong. And you go through all of the hoops, and then you get that diagnosis back that says, yes, there is something here. The first reaction is kind of a weight lifted off of your shoulders, right? But then after that, like you said, you basically go into a bit of a backslide because now a lot of the things that you kind of subconsciously have been doing are no longer subconscious, and you're really not able to do them.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's not like you wake up and you don't know who you are and you don't know how to function. It's just that I guess you are so much more aware of the obstacles that you daily have maneuvered through, because you had to. And now all of a sudden you're so aware of them, and it's like, well, was that really working? Was it not? What do I do? Who am I?
It's kind of like something was controlling you beforehand, and it wasn't necessarily doing what you wanted it to do, but you kind of accepted it and went along with it. And now that you've been untangled from that, you're battling it. Right. So you're no longer just kind of accepting it and going with it. Right. You're trying to battle it and win over it. The hard part is, a diagnosis doesn't mean there's no cure.
Right. This is something that you manage.
Yes,
forever.
Completely.
Right. Whether you decide to do that with medication, without medication, you have to learn how to manage this stuff.
Yeah.
Because you literally cannot perform executive functions like a normal brain does. So therefore it causes so many disruptions in everything on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I personally, have learned, and this has been, kind of a recent revelation for me as well, where I have, since I was diagnosed at 19 up until very recently, the past few years, it is just fighting it. And so you fight it and you either win or lose.
Try to conform, right.
And there are some days where you just lose. You don't have anything in the tank.
Right.
And there's nothing you can do. And it sucks, and you end up beating yourself up over it, which ends up causing a whole bunch of other problems.
Right.
And that's the whole cycle that kind of goes on with neurodivergence.
Mhm.
One of the things, though, that recently I've kind of, learned one of my little new, you know, tricks to it, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
is I don't always try to fight it.
Mhm.
There are times where, yes, I will absolutely fight it. And I will say, we have to keep our mind focused on this. This is the task that we're focused on. And I keep drifting off and I'm going, 100 other directions. But I know I have to pull myself back and I have to stay on this.
Right.
And then there are times now where I will just say, okay, go. Right? You want to, brain, you want to go? You want to travel around and think about, different things here? Go for it.
Mhm.
We'll take a little trip.
Right.
Yes, there's something here that I want to focus on more, but I don't really have to at the moment.
Mhm.
So we'll take that little side, the scenic route, and we'll end up coming back to this at some point. It may take a lot longer and we may come back 3, 4, 5, 6 times before we finally do what we need to do.
Mhm.
But I'm just kind of okay jumping on the train and letting it take me where it wants to go.
Mhm. It's so weird to me because I feel like I'm just stuck right now and like I've been stuck. And I'm constantly trying to do things and but I feel like I have like a billion different things that I'm trying to do and none of them are getting done.
It's literally about tricking your brain and finding little things that work and even having a checklist sometimes,
Mhm.
like a mental checklist
Mhm.
as to what it is that can potentially work for you.
Right.
And you may have 10 different things that you try. And some days the first or second one is just going to hit
Mhm.
and you're going to be able to be, pretty productive in that. Some days you're going to go through all 10 of them and nothing is going to work.
Yeah, there are days where I'm bed stuck and
Right.
like there's no getting out of bed and then just literally screaming at myself in my head all day long like, what are you doing? You're so lazy. Why can't you just get up and do something? And it's just like constant berating myself.
Well, that's where you have to give yourself leeway and you can't beat yourself up over these things. Does it suck when you have to get something done and you end up, going down a YouTube rabbit hole
Mhm.
for 6 hours instead of doing, what you were supposed to be doing? Yeah, it absolutely does. But you can't control this.
Right.
And so beating yourself up over it doesn't do you any good. And so
I
you have to just kind of let yourself go a little bit
Mhm.
and just, forgive yourself sometimes.
I struggle with that just because of my upbringing and constantly being made to feel like the things that I was experiencing were being done on purpose or deliberate in some ways. And there were so many times. And I think that this started kind of like that a little bit of depression after the diagnosis was like thinking back to the little girl version of myself and times where I couldn't express what I was going through and what I was feeling, and I struggle with it now. Like it's very difficult for me to explain to people what I'm going through when I'm having a meltdown. I don't think that I experience them near what most people or other people. I think it's still a meltdown and there's still no control over it. I just want it to end. It's like a panic inside of me. I don't always remember everything that's going on. Nothing truly makes sense because it's just a panic inside of me. And it's like I just want it to stop. Just make it stop, but I always make it worse. And I don't intend for any of that.
Right.
And so trying to get people to understand like I am not trying to be this way. I'm trying to not be this way. And I don't know how.
I can imagine if you're a firefighter, the first time you run into a house, it has got to be the scariest thing that you've ever experienced.
Mm.
And you probably have to be second guessing your decision to do this. And then after you've probably done it 20, 50, 100 times, not that it's any less scary, but you learn how to kind of manage everything. Like I'm sure your adrenaline is still pumping.
Mm-hmm.
You still have a lot of the physiological things going on, but you learn how to manage those things better and understand your surroundings. And you know what I'm saying there, where I'm going with that?
Yes.
And that's very much like what it is here.
Right.
It's always going to be that way. It is a physiological response that you are experiencing.
Right.
And that's never going to go away.
Right.
You just have to learn how to recognize certain signs and then have kind of that catalog in your mind of, okay, what can I do in this moment to try to, balance myself here and get myself back on track.
Right.
And sometimes it's a matter of just stopping and realizing, oh, I'm going off course. Something is going wrong here. And just saying, okay, what am I supposed to be focusing on? And then getting back to that. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes you got to come up with some other tips and tricks in order to try to, like I said, fool your brain into kind of doing what you do. Now, music is a good one. That's often one that you can use to kind of reset yourself or get yourself into, let's say, a hyper focus. Because as we all know, like, as much as, especially with ADHD, you can lose your attention and not be focused on something. You can have times where you just hyper focus on something for hours.
Yes.
And you are just locked the fuck in.
I love and hate that. Because if it's something that I am comfortable doing, spending those hours goes by like nothing. If it's something that I'm trying to teach myself, because that's usually the case, or something that I'm not familiar with, I struggle for those hours. And sometimes it's not actual productivity. It's just a struggle for hours, but I'm still locked in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's okay. You're still locked in.
Yeah.
And you're not...
Jumping around.
Yeah. And you're not losing anything.
Right.
So, trying to find ways to get locked in more often than not is one of the things you're striving for. You can't control that, but you can kind of put yourself in a position where you're more likely to get locked in.
That makes sense. Like bringing it back to like music. Yeah. If I put music on, when I'm doing anything, it really does help me kind of stay the course. That added distraction, I guess.
Yeah. When I was, I'm still technically a software engineer, but I don't really code anymore. I more manage, the teams and architect and decide what goes on and, who's doing what. But when I was, purely, developing things, I would love to, and everybody thought I was crazy, but I would love to work overnight. And everybody would go home and I would just lock in. And oftentimes I would put on music. I had like a specific music mix for me. That was a whole bunch of like hip hop songs, especially that are about like grinding and, making money and being successful. And I would just kind of listen to those. And I would have a picture of my kids, up on the top of my monitor. And I would put myself kind of in this position because sometimes I would sit there all night and I would just screw around with stuff. And I would be unproductive and it would be pointless. But when I didn't have the distractions around me and I could lock in and I could get the music going and I had my reminder there, I could just focus in. And I would start at like, I could start at like 8 p.m. And next thing I know, people are walking in. It's 8 a.m. the next day. And I'm just like, holy shit, where did this time go?
Right.
But I was completely locked in. But it's kind of like I put myself in that position. I took away all of the distractions. I put the music on. I did, I have this, I have that. And that kind of helped me get in the mood, right? To, better get into that zone and that flow. And it was actually pretty helpful.
Thank you for the advice. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, everything is different for everybody.
Right.
I can give you a million different tips that I use.
Right.
Doesn't mean that any of them will work for you. I'm sure some of them might, some of them won't. You'll find ones that I don't even do
Mm-hmm.
that'll work for you. But it's truly about kind of just having that mental checklist.
Yeah.
And, when you recognize, oh shit, I'm doom scrolling when I should be productive,
Mm-hmm.
about recognizing that and putting yourself, okay, how can I put myself in a position? How do I try to focus on something? How do I maybe put the phone down? How do I, right? All of these little things that you're just trying to stack on top of each other that could help you be successful.
I try.
Yes.
Right. It's all about the attempts. I never realized until after the diagnosis how much I would mimic other people. Laughs, gestures, cadence sometimes, and looking back, like how many times I would do that and not even, I think, 100% realize like why I was doing it or even if I was really doing it, but mimicking a lot.
Gonna tell you a little insight that I have about you that I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever told you before?
Sure.
You have kind of two different I am happy faces
Okay.
with things. One is your mimic face, where I can tell
Okay.
you're putting on a face,
Yeah.
right? Because you want me to know that you're happy,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And it's cute because you're like, yes, I'm happy, and I'm putting this face on to show you that,
Yeah.
because you know that that's my feedback that I want.
Right.
And then you have the unmasked happy face that you just have,
Yeah.
and they're very different.
Yeah.
But I can tell the difference between the two of them.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. It's so funny. There's so many times in my life where like I can remember at my grandmother's funeral, as sad as I was that this, I mean, how important this woman was to me. Like this woman, I idolized her.
Oh, yeah.
She was like my best friend. We hung out all the time, and we did everything together. And when she passed away, I was sad, but I don't go through the process like other people do with death. With death, it's different for me. So like the whole time I'm thinking like, what do I need to do? Do I need to how do I need to act right now? Not realizing that this was a neurodivergent thing and not just a socially awkward thing.
Well, we're expected to fit in
Mm-hmm.
and to be socially appropriate.
Right.
And when you're neurodivergent, your brain just doesn't, generally think that way.
Right.
And so we as children will often, like you said, will mimic. We will try to figure out what is it that we're supposed to do,
Mm-hmm.
either by what we're being told or what we see from other people in our surroundings, right? So being at a funeral.
Yeah.
Right? If you're laughing and then, your parents give you a look and tell you you're not supposed to laugh, or, you're going to take that as a cue.
Right.
Or if you look around and you see everybody else crying and sad and somber, okay, I think that's what and so we spend kind of our childhood finding out ways to fit in so we don't stand out in the crowd, and we know what we're doing, and we can be socially appropriate.
Right.
And it's not really conscious behavior that happens.
No.
A lot of that is subconscious.
Right.
And so a lot of what we do is just that subconscious attempt to fit in and be appropriate in these situations.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, when you get your diagnosis, sometimes that all just crashes. And now that subconscious part of you is like relieved.
Yeah.
That thing that's in there that all these years have been telling you this is what, this is how we need to act, suddenly goes, peace out. It's gone. And now you got to figure it out by yourself.
Good example of it. When we did the episode on Pennhurst and I was talking about Dr. Fear, and I laughed after I talked about him doing this horrible, torturous thing of pulling, the teeth out of people. It wasn't because I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
It was an inappropriate response that I did not control and had to actually defend online because someone was like, you guys look really evil with your smirk. No, we're neurodivergent and stupidly excited about getting this episode out because it became so much more than just an investigation for us. So that that plays into it too. Like, you can't always control it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't always control it. Sometimes it just happens. It's who you are. And once you get that diagnosis, I think things change.
Yeah.
And you start a little bit of a backslide.
Yeah.
That you now have to refigure out that thing consciously sometimes that as a child, your subconscious kind of handled for you.
Right. Exactly. So now it's like at the forefront, and you have to think about it instead of it just being automated. And thankfully, I attribute that to higher intelligence and the more mild side of autism. I'm diagnosed autism 1, level 1, which we get misdiagnosed, undiagnosed the most because we don't display like most autistic people do. We are able to hide it so much easier.
Yeah, there's not the open signs of it
Right.
that you see, like
In severe cases.
You know, we all know what severe autism looks like.
Right.
And so a lot of people think of that.
Yes.
And so when you start talking about some of the lower levels of it, if you don't know what you're looking for, it's so super easy to miss. And that's why your whole life, it had been missed.
Yeah. Chalked up to, outbursts or,
everything.
I can remember probably one of the first times, like, thinking about it. Like, it must have been like a meltdown, because I don't remember what it was that I was upset about, but I do remember that it started in the car. My dad was yelling. I'm crying. We were all told that when we got into the house, we had to sit on the couch. And somehow I ended up in the hallway. And when I finally, I guess you could say, came to, or what came out of it, or whatever it was, calmed down enough, I guess, my dad was standing over me, yelling and screaming and kicking the shit out of me. Why did I disrespect him and get off the couch? And I'm literally telling him, like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how I got, I literally, like, I don't know how I got here.
Right.
And I remember, like, him kind of being a little confused in that moment, and then just put me back on the couch, and we never talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly there was something wrong, because I didn't know how I ended up in the hallway. I didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And he obviously could see that.
Right.
But it was just kind of brushed off.
Yeah, there's a lot that gets missed.
Yeah.
When you don't know what you're looking for. And I was self-diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had good grades in school, but it wasn't until I got to college, because I was always, and it's funny, I looked back with my parents. My mom, she had this little book where she would keep every year, she would have my school picture on it. I would, like, sign it.
Yeah.
And my report cards would go in it, and anything else, like my sports pictures and stuff. So really cute. You could go back and you can look at it and see, what you were like throughout your entire childhood.
Yeah.
And after I got diagnosed, I went back with my parents and I was reading all the report cards. And it was, like, comical how many comments were made about, oh, he's a bright boy, but he's lazy, or he doesn't pay attention.
Yep, daydreamer.
Or daydreamer, right? Like, all of these things that I'm reading, and I'm looking at them going, really? You had no idea?
I can one better that. So I was tested when I was younger, because they actually thought that I had a learning disability. Came back completely normal, more than normal, actually, but we'll say normal. What they weren't looking for, let's put it that way. Nobody looked into that. That was it. Oh, I guess there's nothing. So, but they changed my classes. Like, there were things that were done. And there used to be this thing on report cards, and it used to be like telling you, like, whether you were, like, above grade level, on grade level, or below grade level. And no matter how many A's and B's I had on my report card, how well I did, I was always marked as below grade level. And my parents would constantly argue, like, how can you tell us that she's below grade level? Because that's not what her grades are reflecting. So where's this discrepancy that you are insinuating? My general test scores were always really good. Like, I wasn't a bad student.
Right.
I just was not always paying attention the way that the teachers expected me to.
Well, I always chalked it up to, I don't have to study. I'm getting good grades.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter. And then I got to college. And suddenly, you have to study.
You do. Doesn't matter how smart you are.
Does not matter how smart you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I realized I could not. I could not focus.
Yeah.
And I would read the same paragraph twice, 5 times, 10 times, sometimes to the point where I'm like crying.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, why can I not finish this fucking paragraph? And I'm upset.
Yep.
And I don't want to get, too far into the story, but I was in college, started doing some recreational things, we'll call them. And what I found was that certain things, instead of making me high, actually just focused me, and I felt normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking around, and other people are clearly messed up.
Mm-hmm.
I am not. I suddenly feel like, hey guys, I'm gonna go study.
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of put 2 and 2 together, and I thought, okay, maybe I am. Maybe this is what it is.
Yeah.
And so that's when I pushed to get my diagnosis, and I got it. And, from that point on, things changed a lot. Some for the better, some for the worse, but overall for the better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a process, since then, of just trying to figure out who I am and how to best work with this fucking thing that's clearly broken.
Right.
Right? But that I need.
Yeah. You helped me a lot through this, one, just because of your own experiences, but because you just have the type of personality where you are constantly putting yourself in a position to be as helpful as possible, which I couldn't ask for anything better, like even if you don't have the answers for me, you are right there by my side, helping me through it as much as you possibly can, which I appreciate so much. And I wish everyone had that, in at least one person in their life, because it really does make a difference.
Well, I try. I know how much I struggled with it. I know I can help. I don't always know how I can help.
Yeah.
But
I don't always know how you can help.
Yeah. But, I want to be there.
Yeah.
And just do whatever I can to help.
Which I love about you.
So hopefully, some of the stuff that I give to you can help a little bit. Have you been able to harness it at all yet? And have you gotten into some, grooves?
No.
Some hyper focusing that really gets you?
No, even and I am struggling with that too, because like I have always been able to, especially when it comes to like projects,
Mhm.
get into like a hyper focus, like autistic, I'm gonna finish this and finish it, And I lately, like I said, I have how many projects going on around the house?
Right.
And I just can't keep myself focused right now. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm struggling the most with, is finding my ability to do much right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not always easy.
No. I've been struggling with it for a while, and it leads to depression, and then you have just regular life stuff going on, so it can be very struggling, very very trying at times.
Yeah. And then, like I said, you kind of have the depression, you have the neurodivergence, and then, your sometimes lack of success with everything adds on to the depression, which then makes the neurodivergence worse, which it's just one big, shitty cycle that you go through. And, it's not an easy thing to get out of sometimes.
No.
But you have to be easy on yourself.
That I struggle with, yeah.
You have to understand it's a process. You have to understand that oftentimes you don't have control over it.
Right.
And beating yourself up over it isn't going to help at all. And it's easy to say.
Right.
It's
easy to say. It's hard to believe, because the typical responses that I have gotten through my entire life is telling me that I was lazy or, you
Sure.
know, like they're, you've gone
Sure.
through this, right?
Sure.
I'm not able to finish things. I'm not successful. Like there are so many things that like I have just been knock, 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 not realizing that I've actually had issues that I have been struggling with my entire life that are huge. And I've considered that a huge success that I actually got where I am in life, period,
Right.
But at the same time, it's hard to look at any accomplishment and feel anything other than a little bit of relief of anxiety.
It's interesting because there's the old cliche that it can be, you know, your kryptonite and it can also be your superpower.
Yeah.
And I feel that hardcore because we all know what the kryptonite is,
Mm-hmm.
but I can get into these grooves and I can, put it to use sometimes. And it makes me very good at what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm not good at a whole lot of things, but the things that I'm able to lock in and focus on and do,
Right.
I can often be very good at
Right.
because of it,
Right.
because I've kind of learned how to manage it.
Right.
I've had a lot of people who have told me in the past, you shouldn't say that because not everybody can do that, and it's not a superpower for a lot of people. They just get the negative of it.
Right.
And I feel bad in those moments, but, another regard is don't ever quit and stop trying to figure out how to best use it. Because there are things in there with everybody where it can be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have the bad, there's no question about it. And you have to learn how to mitigate that and manage that and deal with, the losses as they come.
Mm-hmm.
But don't ever give up on the good side of it because our brains are doing things that, are things brains aren't necessarily designed to do.
Right.
And it feels like we're kind of breaking out of something and there's a superpower in there somewhere.
Right. Mine just happens to be physics. What am I going to do with that with no degree?
Oh, that's alcohol.
No, alcohol helps with time travel.
Whatever. It's substances that,
No,
that get you going
that's not true.
and think that you're Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I don't think that I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Sorry, you think that Neil deGrasse Tyson is an idiot.
No, I don't. I actually think he's a brilliant man.
Not when you get in your physics mindset.
That's not true. I just don't always agree with his opinions on things. But
Okay.
that's normal in science. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I love physics.
That I know. So I think, kind of looking at everything that we've been talking about, I think really what you need to do is not be so hard on yourself when you have your bad days. Try to find resources.
That I have been. I've been, communities online and books and articles and
Yeah.
just about anything I possibly can to help me manage this.
The more you can understand it, the better. And science doesn't understand it, so there's no way that we really can.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you can understand what they understand and yourself, the better you're going to be. You got to keep working through it. You got to, find ways to motivate yourself a little bit, to get your brain just pointed in the right direction sometimes. Those little tips and tricks are the things that, can be the difference between you just having a dead day where you accomplish nothing and actually getting yourself to be somewhat productive. Because as much as like the negative cycles can start to snowball and build into depression and you beat yourself up,
Yeah.
when you can get yourself into a positive mindset and you can accomplish things, and stack wins day after day, you start getting into a better mindset and a better pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say for me, I have found that sometimes I have a tendency, and this is definitely an ADHD thing, where we overload ourselves with things and we think we can do it all. And
Right.
sure, I can do that.
Right.
What I have found is when I keep myself consistently busy, I'm actually able to better do all of those things.
Yeah.
It's a problem when you overstack things and now you're just not physically able to.
Right.
But if I can find that sweet spot for me where I'm able to, do all of the things that I need to kind of handle.
Mm-hmm.
I feel productive. I start feeling better about myself, and I start doing each one of those things better.
Mm-hmm.
And that builds on top of each other day after day. And you start building into a positive mindset instead of just the negative one.
Yes, which I'm working on. You are helping. You're amazing.
I try.
Well, thank you for this. I hope that this helped a lot of other people too, especially if you're kind of in the same boat and you're having, difficulties with your diagnosis and, managing your neurodivergence the way that I am. Tell us your stories. We'd love to hear them. Tell us how you manage when you were diagnosed and how it's been for you, how your journey's been going for you. We'd love to hear you.
Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, like, comment, subscribe. We really appreciate when you do that. If you need resources, if you have questions about neurodiversity, if you want to talk about some things, hit us up in the comments. This is something that, we're both very passionate about, so we would love to hear from you and we'd love to communicate on it. And as always, until next time.
Bye, everybody.